Have you ever had a fear of public speaking, yet went full in on that and took charge and didn't worry about that fear and letting you get in the way of yourself? And you decided to go ahead and speak on stages and podcast? Well, today's guest, Amy Hesper, has done exactly that. And we're going to dive into that today. Guys, I am Phillip Sessions, your public speaking and communication strategist coach, and this is the Speaking Sessions podcast. Excited to have Amy Hesper here to really dive into that fear of public speaking, how she overcomes it almost on a daily basis. She's a client of mine, a friend, very excited to have her on. She is an artist helping you discover visual meditation and spiritual connection through art. She's a best-selling author, great book. She's helped so many people, helped myself. She's an encourager, a faithful Christian. And Amy, I am just so excited to have you on the podcast. Tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Well, good morning, Philip. Thank you for having me on. And it's an honor to be here, and amazing introduction. I still get a little flushed when I hear all of those accomplishments. And so I live in Gulfport, Mississippi, married, and I am a rabbit rescue mom. And I still work 9 to 5. And I have my art and, of course, the writing and books on the side. A lot of people call that a side hustle. I call that following my dreams. And, it's always a pleasure to help other people feel heard, seen, and loved.
Couldn't agree more. And I love that you said following your dreams, not a side hustle, but following your dreams. And it's interesting. Somebody told me the other day, because I made a post about the fact with BMW and some things that have went on there and how I've kind of got sent to HR previously for posting on social media about things that were not company secure information stuff. It was just kind of a thing happening within the company. But anyways, this guy actually mentioned that BMW for me stood for build my wings, which was really interesting. So it's kind of like you with the your dream, following your dream instead of a side hustle. So same thing. But Amy, before we kind of get more into your background, because I do want to talk a little bit about that 9 to 5 and everything, I want to ask that first question about how did you overcome the fear of public speaking, or how are you overcoming that fear on a daily basis?
Oh gosh, public speaking definitely brings a little bit of anxiety when I know I have to get up and speak, or even podcasts such as this. There's always that little bit of fear and anxiety that pops up. And I have to say that you have definitely helped me to overcome that through your group, and just so thankful for your friendship and encouragement. And you always tell me that I do better than I think I do. So it's that own self-critic that we have to push past and just be ourselves. I think when we show up authentically, that it helps other people to be able to do the same as well. And everything is not going to be perfect. And so that's the biggest thing that I think art has helped me push past also. But just doing it and sharing the message, no matter maybe how imperfect that the message is, or if I stumble on, I still have some of those words that I hang up on quite a lot. And I go back and listen to my messages and things that I talk or speak on video, and try to pick up on things that I can do better. And so it's just a repetition. And like you say, a lot of time speaking builds confidence. And I think that is so true, that the more repetition that you do, the more that you speak, the more that it does help you to get better. Like anything, like exercise, it helps you to get stronger. So the more that you do something, the better that you get at it.
Yeah, and you're 100% right on that. I can tell you're listening. No, you are definitely taking action on all your speaking. And I love that you are doing that. One thing that you mentioned, which is totally you, no matter what, not something that it's something you can learn, but a lot of people just naturally do it is being authentic. You're very much about being authentic with everyone and really encouraging them, which makes it really easy to encourage you when it comes to this public speaking side of things. But what makes you want to be so authentic? Because I think a lot of people maybe fear being authentic, and with having that fear of public speaking, that probably makes it even harder to actually speak with authenticity. Wow, that's a hard word to say. But how do you still be authentic even when you're overcoming that fear of speaking?
Well, there was something that I read or heard years ago, and it's think of it as, if you tell a lie, then you're always going to be wondering, or you're always going to have to put up this front. You're always going to have to wear this mask. So when you show up fully as yourself and you just share yourself, no matter how um, messy or not perfect, but you're honest, then you don't have to worry about someone taking it out of context. So when you show up as yourself online or in person, it's one and the same. So they're not seeing one person online and then seeing someone else in person. And we should be authentic. We should be ourselves, because there's only one of us ever made in the world. And um, it's just showing up and being your authentic self, so no one can claim your anything else, or they get the wrong impression about you, because they see you, they hear you, they see your actions, and they know that you are real. And I think one of the downfalls with social media itself is there are so many people who wear a mask, and they are so scared to show up and be who they are, because we see a lot of highlight reels on social media, and you may see this wonderful, glorious picture, but then in real life it's filters, and they don't actually live up to what they tell other people. And so um, it's a disservice, honestly, I believe, when you're not, because you're not being real, you're not being who you're called to be when you do things like that.
Mm. I totally agree with you there. Yes, we need to be the same person online and offline, because I've heard so many stories of people where they look so great online, or they're so great and personable, and then you meet them in person and it's a completely different person. This actually happened to me. There's somebody local that's not local anymore, but this guy who had, I think he probably had about 30,000 people that were following him on Instagram. He really made this big name for himself. He was like a really good giving person, and he had some local events. And I figured, I'm not going to just try and go right in and be buddies with this guy, but maybe I'll come around this event. I'll meet some other people, maybe end up meeting him and kind of getting in his circle and everything, and that circle of influence. And we never really talked in the DMs online, but just the way that he was online, he was very outgoing. And he did talk in person about like how he's very introverted. It takes a lot for him to be extroverted and everything. And for those of you watching the video, you'll be able to see this, but literally when I'm talking to him, he's just like, yeah, he just turns off to the side and he's like looking wherever and not even looking at me while he's talking and just barely answering my questions. And I'm just like, hey man, I appreciate this, or this is just ask a random question, not asking him like, hey, will you sign my card, or whatever, just being a fan boy or anything like that. Like I was just trying to have a genuine conversation with the guy. And then after like 3 questions and him being standoffish like this, I'm like, all right, man, well, hey, it's good to talk to you tonight. Enjoyed the event, and just let him go. And he went over to some other people and was nice as could be. So I don't know, maybe it was me perhaps, but it just felt like that was very inauthentic of him to be this one person online that he's not in person. And I get it to some extent. You can get on a video and it's probably more comfortable because you're in your own house or wherever versus in person. But yes, you need to be that same person online and in person. Now, I want to kind of shift here a little bit. We talked about this offline, and this is one thing, Amy, that I would say, and I know you need to continue to work on it because you downplay a lot of the things that you do. Like you've spoken on a virtual event. You've spoken on, I think, 6 podcasts now. As we came up with the number, it might be plus or minus a couple. Within there are probably plus a couple because we did name off like 6 of them and everything. And you're like, well, well, they're just a part of this Apex group that we're a part of. That's still something. Even though you do have that connection, it's still something with them. And so, one, don't downplay that. It's still really awesome that you're getting on podcasts. There's plenty of people in Apex. There are plenty of people in this world that know people that have a podcast that don't get on that podcast. So you should still be patting yourself on the back for that. But I do want to ask the question around getting on these podcasts and everything, because again, I know we've talked about this offline. We've talked about how, well, I'm not sure, and even coming into this podcast, what do I need to be prepared for? That's your personality. You're like this personality that has to know everything. Where it's funny because I'm the total opposite. I'm like, all right, cool, let's go. We'll figure it out when we get there, kind of thing. Like I'm good to go. So it's been this fun dynamic for us being friends and coach client, all that good stuff, but especially our friendship to be able to see all that. But for those people that are, and I guess that's type A, I don't know what type it is, but anyways, that person that has to have all the information before they go into something, what can you say to them to help them kind of overcome that? Because that would be a fear. I mean, I know my wife gets aggravated because I'm like, whatever, we'll figure it out. It's not working. We'll figure it out. And it's aggravating to her. So I'm sure it's hard for you to hear me be like, we're good. You'll figure it out, especially coming on my podcast. But talk to the people out there that have this situation like yours where they want to know everything, but maybe they can't know everything. And what can they do to work around that? I'll say it, or work through it. I don't know.
Well, you brought up a good thing, and it's that critic. But you always tell me, "Oh, you're good. You're good. You always do better than what you think you do." And I think that goes to the very first question of pushing past the fear to speak in public. And if I had to go into that, because I'm a very analytical person, so I'm very much right brain, left brain, which is really strange to me, especially having a little bit of accounting background and art being like the farthest end of the spectrum from each other.
Well, hey, that's the same for
But
me with being an engineer and doing speaking. Like usually they don't go hand in hand.
right. But I do think it is just pushing past the fear. And a really good example of that is my artwork. And I jokingly said, probably about a year or two ago, when I was really heavy into just getting started and exploring what I was doing as an artist and a creative, and very much perfectionist tendencies that I've had just from some childhood traumas and things. And I would get in the studio back then and I would create something, and I would see it as this imperfect. It wasn't how I wanted it to turn out. And one night I heard, "It's not for you. what you create is not for you, it's for others. And so I was kind of like, hey, like, okay, I hear you, and so since then, I'm like, okay, it may not be for me. And I believe I've even heard you say before that your message is not for you. You need to talk to who is in the audience. And so that was basically, in essence, the same thing that I heard. What I'm creating is not for me in artwork. It's for someone else to connect with and to serve a purpose for someone else. And a prime example of this is yesterday I made a post, and it was very raw and vulnerable. And I shared it, and at first I was like, I'm not gonna put that on my personal page. I shared it in our Apex group, but I pushed through that fear of putting it on my personal page. And within nearly a minute of doing so, someone dropped in my DM and said, "Girl, your post." And I was like, what post is she talking about? And she come back and she said, I just lost my job today, and I was sitting in a pity party, and then I get on Facebook and bam, there's your post. And it spoke to her because it was standing in faith even when we're having the hardest time of our life. And it was just another divine sign that proves when we share, when we are vulnerable, we're at our weakest, but it's showing our strength, because that message, like you say, when we speak it, it's for someone else to glean knowledge, or just to, in essence, let them know that they're not alone in what they're going through, and there are other people that they could lean on, whether they realized it or not. Someone else is going through a difficult season, and you can lean on each other together to help get through it. And that actually happened twice this week. So it's just weird how things have been turning out that way. I don't want to post something, but the message just comes so strong, and I just share it as raw and vulnerable and authentic as I am. I'm just sharing me, and 9 times out of 10, someone says, "Hey, I needed to hear that today." And it proves that our message and pushing past that fear and showing up as authentic really, truly makes a difference in the world.
Yes, and I love when I get those messages or get those comments on posts where I do that same thing, where I'll say something and it's something that maybe it's bothering me right now, or it's just something that's on my heart, and I just decide to share that. And actually happened last night's video myself, actually, and I recorded in the morning, so my hair's all crazy. I'm just feeling it here this morning right after the gym. And I just talked about how it's not about giving 110% effort every time that matters. It's your intention behind your effort, because it's the same thing. And this is the example I shared in that video, was if your coach tells you to go take a lap and you walk the lap, he's going to be mad at you. But as long as you jogged and you tried, I'm not saying sitting here and look like you're jogging and still going slow, but if you were trying, no matter how fast or slow you did that, they're not going to be mad at you, because your intention was you were trying your best to go do that lap, or you were doing it at your fast speed in the case of the coach there. But yes, you're right. And that it really, that intention we have when it comes to our post, our message, whatever, as well. Because if we simply are selling a product, that's all we're doing, and I come on this podcast, or I come on every video and I'm like, buy my product, and it's all about me making money, you're not going to want to be interested in me at all. You're not going to be interested at all. Not going to want to be nothing. It's, yeah, we're tuning Phillip out, we're blocking him, we're done with him. But if you're like Amy and you're there just trying to give back, just trying to help somebody, being genuine, being authentic, you're going to have people really gravitate towards you. And you've got a great following. I know you don't have like this massive following, but you do have a good core following of a lot of people, which honestly is way better than having millions of followers that they just put random stuff or random comments, or they really just don't care about you. So I want to give you props there as well, Amy, that you do a great job with being authentic about sharing a message that'll help people. And you really do put yourself out there sometimes with the things that are going on, but it does help the people that need to help them. And even though I know you continue to fight this fear of sharing your message of public speaking, you continue to conquer that. And if you could, I know we already kind of asked that question, but I think it's a really important thing for people to understand. Could you just maybe explain it in a different way, or use an analogy for us of why that you continue to still push past that fear to help people?
To push past the fear of just showing up as authentic and speaking. Is that what you're
Yeah, I mean, I
asking?
just I
Right.
just kind of I know I left that very open, but yeah, whether it be speaking or just posting on social media, because I know speaking, posting a little bit different there, but
Mhm.
just why do you share the things that you do? Because I know even in your book you shared a lot of vulnerable things also, and then just you going live and the conversations we've had and everything, and I'm sure you're having conversations with other people. You're just very open and vulnerable a lot of times, and what really pushes you to do that and not worry about that judgment that you may get?
So the biggest reason, of course, is um, because we're called to be good stewards. We're called
Mm,
to do a good work, and um, the very essence of my why in life in general, not necessarily just a why in like a business or my work, is being ourselves, being who we're called to be, because each one of us is unique. You will touch people that I will never touch or come in contact with. So your message will be heard by other people who will never hear my message. And so I think that's why it's important to show up as ourselves, um, to be who we're called to be, because we were each created to do something that only we can do. And whether that's through our work, through the business that we have, even through our 9 to 5, our families, um, we are all each divinely created, and we all have a purpose here. And to show up and have conversations with people, and um, to do something that you feel called to do, it's important to do that. And I know I'm speaking more from a faith-based type answer, but even outside of that, it's being the good person, it's being the authentic person. Um, and I think that matters more, because people need real. They don't need an Instagram reel that's only a highlight, because so many people have these misconceptions of what success is, or what real love is, or what a connected family is, or um, just being authentic. A lot of people, because they are just so focused on other people who they may never live with, that they forget about the people who are closest to them, and they don't support the real people. They're supporting the the Facebook reels or the Instagram reels, and it truly is not adding anything to their life. That's why we need to be authentic and make real connections with people, because those that we are closest to truly matter most. And then, like I said, making sure that we get our message, no matter how messy it is, out into the world, because other people need to hear it. And like you say, Phillip, like our message isn't for us. Like my art isn't for me, it's for other people. And I think that's the way that God intended a lot of things, is for us to step into who he wants us to be and be those fishers of men.
Hmm. You're exactly right. We are all unique and created to do something unique as well, to be able to help out people in this world for sure and make the world a better place. I love that. Amy, there's so many great things that you share, and I feel like we could go on about a lot of stuff. I do want us to go through this. Is a little plug for me, if you will, but I do want people to know a little bit about your experience with me as a coach, with me in the group coaching program, speaking sessions, lounge. So if you don't mind sharing like a piece or two of what you do like about working with me, I would really appreciate that.
So we've been connected, I think, over a year now, and to me, you are real and authentic, and you're extremely encouraging, and you don't hesitate to call me out on my doubt, because I always say you do better than you think you do. And like you started out, I still struggle to realize the things that I do. And like you say, when you were still on a podcast, that still matters. And so it's that encouragement and you pointing out still those doubts and giving that encouragement when I come to you and say, hey, take a listen to this, or how does this sound? And you always squash my inner critic, because you're like, oh, you did really good. And I'm still sitting there and I'm listening to it and I'm picking apart every little thing. But again, I think that's where the authentic piece comes from. And you truly do want to help people get better with their speaking and show up better with what they're doing. And I've thoroughly enjoyed being a part of your group, and you put valuable content in there, and you're always giving different ways to either speak about something or oh gosh, sorry, my mind just went completely blank. See,
That's all right. Hey.
But you really do give a lot of value in the group and even outside of the group. But you do push us to get better and to push past that fear. And I think a lot of people do have that fear of public speaking, and we do get stuck in our heads. But you are a great coach to help give that encouragement and let us know that we do better than what we think we're doing.
Oh, awesome. Well, Amy, I appreciate you sharing that. And it's been a joy having you as a client and a friend and everything, like we talked about at the beginning. But you've just been awesome and really pushing through, and you've gained a lot of confidence. I know it may not feel that way, but you have gained a ton of confidence since we first started getting to know each other and then working together and everything. So honored to be a friend, honored to be able to coach you and mentor you through that fear of public speaking and to get better at public speaking. But I do want to go to our last question now, which is, if you only had one message to share for the rest of your life, what would that message be?
So as a creative, as an artist, a lot of people say I am not creative. but I would challenge everyone in whatever area that they're in to know that when you have an idea for something, it can change the world around you, and always show up as your authentic self. Whether you believe in yourself, that's one thing I've struggled with. But again, like I said earlier, sharing your message is not for you. So think of your work as not for you. Think of it as for someone else, to help someone else either overcome difficulties that they've been through, overcome their fear of public speaking, just overcome things that maybe they're struggling with from a family standpoint. Just always show up and share your message, because there is strength in vulnerability. And it may be very uncomfortable at first, but it can really change someone else's day. And it can be as simple as sharing a smile with someone, or sharing that hurtful message and just letting others know that they are not alone.
Just show up. I like that. So many great things there within that message. And once again, Amy, thank you so much for coming on the podcast, sharing insight from your personal journey of how you are conquering that fear of public speaking. It's just been great to have you on the podcast.
Thanks, Philip. I appreciate you having me on.